Welcome back to Blacklit Memory. Tonight, I bring you 8 new stories from deep within the Appalachian wilds where silence listens back. And not every trail leads out. A wall that weeps. A voice on the radio that knows your name. Ever seen your reflection blink before you do? Or found yourself walking a trail you never remember choosing? If you find comfort in the strange and the sacred, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still leaves a porch light on. Now hush the world. And now, we return to what should have stayed buried. It was early October, the first cold morning after a month of sweat-slick runs, when I veered off the rim trail near New River Gorge. My name's Colin Harker. I'm 31, part-time trail guide, full-time fool for distance running. And I knew those woods like the back of my hand until I didn't. I was training for an ultra, legs aching from the climb, when I spotted a narrow offshoot just beyond a ridge marker. No blaze, no trailhead, just a soft dip in the trees where the ferns bent as if someone had passed not long before. Something about it felt old, but not abandoned, more like it was waiting. The path narrowed as I followed it, the usual twigs and crunch replaced by an unnatural quiet beneath my shoes. No birds, no wind. Even the sun dimmed behind the canopy, like the trees were thickening to blot it out. At first, I thought it was just a game trail, but it kept going. And the longer I stayed on it, the smoother the ground became until the grass gave way entirely, replaced by a pale soil that looked almost polished, like river stone worn flat over centuries. I glanced back once. No sign of where I'd come from. I remember slipping, not hard, just enough to jolt my ribs and spook my balance. I skidded down a slope I hadn't seen, the earth sloping beneath me like a hidden chute. When I landed, my palm scraped something jagged. I expected roots or broken rock instead. I looked down and saw it. An ivory row of what looked like tiny pebbles embedded in the trail. But they weren't pebbles. They were teeth. Dozens at first, then hundreds. All set in hard-packed dirt that gleamed dull white in the shaded light. Some were worn down to nubs, others still sharp with molars whole and intact. Baby teeth. Canines. Even gold fillings on a few. At first, I thought it had to be some morbid art installation, some hiker's twisted sense of humor, but when I knelt and brushed the dirt away from one row, I found a name carved faintly beside it. E. Murray. I dug another. Jonas R. another. Alice Wheat. All in the same shaky hand, all shallow, like etched in panic. My chest felt tight. The woods were dead quiet around me. But it wasn't peaceful. It was too still, like even the trees were holding breath. I reached for my pack to grab my compass and dropped it when I saw what lay beneath my boot. A single incisor, still bloody at the root, as if yanked freshly and pressed into the dirt. No name beside that one, just a smudge. I turned around. The slope I'd fallen down was gone. Not just hidden gone. Where there should have been an incline, there was only more flat path, more pale soil, more teeth. I took 3 steps and felt like I was being watched, not from the trees, but from below. Something was beneath the trail. The ground didn't feel solid anymore. It felt thin, like a crust, like if I jumped, it might break. The light had changed again. I hadn't noticed. But the sun had dropped too low too fast. I checked my watch. 2:42 p.m. Still afternoon. But the shadows stretched like dusk. I walked for what felt like a mile, trying to trace a circle, to find the ridge again. But no matter where I turned, the trail just kept revealing more names, more rows of teeth. Some were embedded in spirals, others in the half-moon arcs. I found one where the teeth formed a perfect ring around a single, rusted key. I didn't sleep that night. I set up camp just off the trail, even though my gut screamed not to. My headlamp flickered every few minutes, and I kept hearing something crunch outside the tent soft. Wet crunches like footsteps on gravel. But there weren't any stones here, only teeth. I zipped the tent tight and shoved my compass under my shirt, willing it to point anywhere but down. By morning, my pack was open. I know I closed it. Know it. The zipper was twisted, and inside I found something I hadn't packed: a photo, printed on heavy paper, already yellowing. It showed a boy standing beside a trail that looked exactly like the one I was on. Same tree line, same curve. Only the boy had no mouth, just smooth skin where his lips should be. Scrawled on the back, "Runners never last long." I left the photo. I shouldn't have. But I felt like taking it would mark me, or worse, wake something up. I walked west, or what I guessed was west, until my legs gave out and I collapsed near a patch of actual grass. When I looked back, the trail of teeth was gone, or at least buried. But I still feel them under me sometimes. When I run the ridge paths, tiny crunches underfoot. Not stone, not root, just a warning I can't prove. I didn't speak about what I saw for nearly a year. Not when I came back to town. Not when people asked why I quit the trail guiding job. I told them I'd torn a ligament. Showed off a fake knee brace until the questions stopped. But the truth was, I couldn't stop seeing those names. The way each letter seemed gouged into the earth with urgency. Sometimes, I'd wake up sweating with the phantom taste of blood in my mouth, like something old and angry had chewed through my dreams. I moved apartments 3 times that year, but it never mattered. The feeling followed. 6 months ago, I went to a dentist for the first time in years. Routine cleaning, nothing special. He was halfway through the exam when he stopped cold, said something about an extra root, an anomaly he'd never seen. Took x-rays, showed me the film. There, nestled beneath my lower molar, was a tiny shadowed shape. "Looks like an unerupted tooth," he said. "But it's not yours." I didn't know what to say. He offered to extract it. I said no. I started running again. Slowly at first, sticking to pavement. But the call of the woods is like hunger, it waits. I told myself I just wanted to face it. That maybe if I found the place again, I could prove something, settle the weight in my chest. I went back to New River Gorge in late March, when the trees still wore their bones. No one stopped me, no signs, no warnings. And yet, when I reached the same stretch of trail, nothing looked familiar. No ridge marker, no strange dip in the trees, just the ordinary woods, casual and cruel in how they forget. I wandered off path anyway, compass in hand this time. And for a while, it felt normal. But then I noticed the silence again, just like before. No birds, no wind. The kind of quiet that drapes over you like a net. I moved slower, measured each step, until I came to a patch of ground that felt wrong. The soil was darker here, spongy. I knelt, brushed it gently. Beneath the top layer was a dull, ivory curve. I didn't dig further. I just stood and whispered. Not again, as if it might hear. That night, I camped further off than I ever had. Deep enough that I should have heard owls, foxes, anything. Instead, I heard breathing, not mine, a steady rise and fall, just beyond the tent wall. I held my breath to match it, to be sure it wasn't an echo. It wasn't. The breathing paused when I did, started again only after I exhaled. When I finally built the courage to look out, there was nothing there. But in the morning, the ground around the tent was marked dozens of small heel prints, barefoot, human. I tried to leave that morning. Tried, but my compass needle spun twice and then pointed straight behind me. No matter which way I turned, it redirected back, as if something was using me to point. That's when I noticed the old carved key. Same one I'd seen months before. This time, it lay on top of the soil, glinting faintly, beckoning. I picked it up because of course I did. The air went cold the moment it touched my skin. Somewhere beneath the ground. I swear I heard the sound of a door unlocking. I don't remember the next 2 hours clearly. I must have run. The next thing I recall, I was flat on my back beside an old oak with bark stripped clean. Clutched in my fist was the key and something else. A molar. Not mine. Too small, too new. There was a letter carved into it. See. I threw it as far as I could and walked until my feet bled. When I finally hit a ranger station road, the sun was too high. It should have been afternoon. But my watch read 9:17 a.m. Again. Same time it stopped on my first trip. I've tried to forget again. But last week, a stranger mailed me a package, no return address, inside a map, hand-drawn. Faint red trails, curling like veins. In the center, one word, written in a sharp, almost desperate script beneath. I don't know who sent it, but I've started keeping the key close again, around my neck. Some nights I wake to feel it hot against my chest, like it's trying to burn its way through. And when I sleep, I dream of soil cracking under my feet and teeth rising to meet me. My name is Eli Branson. I was 36 when the accident happened. My wife Callie was driving home from Harlan proper, just after dusk, when a deer ran the road and the rain turned the blacktop into ice. She and our son, Jonah, were gone before I got there. No sirens, no hospital. Just the coroner handing me 2 rings in a plastic bag and an apology that meant less than the dirt they were buried in. After the funeral, I didn't speak to anyone for weeks. I packed a single duffel, grabbed the deed to my grandfather's old cabin in the hills, and left the house full of their things to rot. The place was deep in the tree line, up past where the gravel cuts out and the sky turns to branches. Nothing but woods and rot and the slow creak of an old roof when the wind got bitter. I didn't want company. Didn't want to be checked on or brought casseroles by well-meaning church folks who had no idea what it felt like to lose your whole damn world in a heartbeat. I wanted silence. But the silence that found me wasn't the kind that heals. It watches. The first night I noticed them, I'd just finished nailing plastic over the shattered back window. The cold was cruel that evening, sharp like needles behind the ears. I went to pour myself a drink when I saw movement on the porch, a twitch of shadow. Thought it was a deer or a possum until I turned on the light and saw them. 2 children, motionless. One a little taller, like 9 or 10. The other smaller, maybe 5. But their faces, if you can even call them that, were smooth as eggs. No eyes, no mouths, just blank skin stretched too tight, too pale. I didn't move, just stared, heart knocking in my throat. Then they turned without stepping, without sound, and vanished off the porch like smoke in reverse. I didn't sleep that night. Told myself it was trauma, grief playing games with my mind. But the next evening, they came again. Same place, same stillness. I didn't turn on the light this time, just stood behind the curtain, watching them not move. I tried to take a photo with my phone, but the screen only showed static white noise crawling across the glass, like they weren't really there, or they were too real to be seen. The third night, I left the porch light on, left the door locked, sat with a loaded pistol in my lap and every curtain drawn. They came again. I heard the boards creak, heard the soft click of tiny footsteps, too light to be normal. But when I flung the door open, there was only the wind and muddy footprints on the wood slats. Child-sized, leading up to the door, but never away from it. I drove down the mountain the next morning, sat in the parking lot of a hardware store for 2 hours, hands shaking, bought security cameras, motion lights, a flood lamp rig I didn't need. I installed it all before nightfall, made sure every corner of that porch was watched. And that night, when they came, everything failed. The lights blinked out, cameras glitched into snow. One camera did catch something 37 seconds of what looked like static at first. But when I zoomed in, you could make out a hand pressed to the lens, small, filthy, fingerprints smeared like oil across the glass. I didn't open the door after that, didn't speak out loud. I ate in silence, slept in corners. But still they came, every night, until the night I woke up and they weren't outside anymore. They were inside. I found muddy handprints on the ceiling above my bed. Not the floor, not the walls, the ceiling. Tiny smudges arcing like something had been crawling upside down while I slept. My pistol was on the floor. The safety flipped off. I don't remember dropping it. The cabin feels different now. Not haunted, not cursed, just claimed. Like I'm not living in it anymore, just tolerated. Like something else lives here now. And I'm the ghost. I tried burning sage, praying, screaming. Nothing changed. The kids still come. Sometimes I hear them giggle, like broken bells under the floorboards. Other times, I hear them trying to speak soft hissing against the window glass, forming almost words I dare not answer. A week ago, I found a crayon drawing taped to the back door. It wasn't there when I went to bed. In it, there's a house. My house. 2 children stand outside, holding hands. Inside, a figure watches from the window. Its face has no eyes. Just a mouth, stretched wide and stitched shut. Written beneath in childish scrawl, "Let him speak." I don't know what it means. But every night since, I've woken up with dirt in my mouth, not just grit, wet soil packed under my tongue, between my teeth, like something's trying to plant me from the inside out. I can't leave the woods. The road never takes me far. Every path leads back to the same clearing, the same porch, the same cold breath on the back of my neck when I pretend I'm alone. It's been 31 days since I last saw the sun rise outside the cabin. I keep a tally scratched into the wood of the mantel now, one for each day I survive. Whatever this is. The sky still lightens, but not like it should. It's a sick color, yellow-gray like old bruises. And the trees don't cast shadows anymore. The porch creaks every night, like clockwork. And now, I don't even have to open the door to see them. They press their blank faces against the windows, silently, and I swear the glass bows inward. I tried to call someone 2 weeks ago. Landline's been dead. Cell won't power on past 3%. It always drains, no matter how long I leave it on charge. I smashed it in a panic when it lit up on its own one night. Just a single message across the screen in green letters. Where is his voice? I don't know who his is. I don't want to know. I've boarded the doors now, nailed every window shut. But each morning, I wake to find the nails pushed back out. Not torn or pried, just reversed, like time stuttered. Just enough to undo them. The dreams are worse than the nights. I see Callie, but her mouth is gone too. She holds Jonah in her arms, rocking him by a fire that never gives off light. She never speaks, just opens her arms as if to beckon me into the dark. And in those dreams, I walk to her every single time. But right before I reach them, the children step between us, those faceless watchers staring without eyes, still and wrong. And when I wake, I always hear breathing, not near the bed, not in the walls, but inside my head. Last Tuesday, I found a new drawing under my pillow. Same waxy crayon lines, same childish hand. This one showed a tunnel beneath the cabin, narrow and dripping. And at the end, me, bent, mouthless, holding a baby I don't recognize. I tore it up, burned every piece. But the next night, it reappeared untouched, unfolded, smelling faintly of soil. The trapdoor in the pantry, which had always been nailed shut, was hanging open the next morning. Nothing but a crawl space below. Too narrow for me, but something had been in it. The dust was disturbed. There were handprints, tiny, upright, leading upward. I've started hearing whispers now, not outside, not from the trees, but from under the floorboards. My name, almost, but not quite right. Like someone imitating a voice they've never used. I heard a lullaby once, familiar. One Callie used to hum when Jonah couldn't sleep. Only it wasn't her voice. It came slow and broken, like a recording too stretched. That night, I woke with a small hand pressed to my throat. Not choking, just holding. Testing. I haven't eaten in 3 days. The food spoils as soon as I open it, rots in real time. Cans hiss and bleed black fluid. The fridge hums a lullaby now, soft and wet, like there's something alive in the coils. I sleep during the day, if I can. But even then, the cabin shifts. I once woke up to find every chair in the house turned to face the bedroom door. No footprints, no noise, just rearrangement, as if they'd been watching all night and wanted a better view. I found an old recorder in a drawer, something my grandfather used to use for sermons. I've been speaking into it, trying to explain everything, thinking if I can get the words out. I might reclaim some of myself, but every playback is empty, or worse, reversed. A few nights ago, I heard my voice on it, but not me. It was a version of me whispering. Let him speak, over and over. I played it backwards. It said the same thing. Tonight. I opened the front door. I don't know why. Maybe because I was tired of waiting. Maybe because something whispered I had to. The porch was empty, but the ground was wet with small footprints circling, layered like a dance. In the center was a new drawing. The cabin again. But this time, the roof was gone. And inside, where I should be, was a hole, a perfect black circle, with arms stretching out from it like roots. I think I understand now. They don't want to haunt me. They want to use me. Whatever they are, whatever took their faces, it's not just about grief. It's about voice, about silence, about turning a man hollow enough that something else can speak through him. I'm not sure how much longer I'll hold out. My reflection doesn't match my movements anymore. I watched it blink out of sync this morning. And when I turned away, it smiled. If anyone finds this, don't come up here. Burn the place. Salt the earth. Pray if you believe in that sort of thing. But don't answer the door if they knock. Don't listen if they sing. And for God's sake, never let them speak through you. My name's Mason Coyle. I'm 28. Freelance cartographer by trade. Wanderer by compulsion. I came out to Pisgah National Forest to hike solo and log elevation data for a private topography firm. It was supposed to be a week-long circuit loops I've done before. Terrain I could trace in my sleep. I brought a paper map. Not out of necessity, but reverence. There's something sacred in paper that digital trails can't touch. But that map changed everything. Every night I marked my path in red ink. And every morning, the ink was different. New routes, new forks, trails that didn't exist. At first, I thought it was fatigue. Maybe I'd drawn them in my sleep. But the new lines weren't mine. They had a different slope to the curves, tighter angles. Some weren't even in red, they were rust-colored, almost brown. And the lines shimmered faintly under the flashlight. On the fourth morning, I woke to find a small smudge in the corner of the map. When I rubbed it, the paper thinned and split like wet skin. Beneath it, faint as fog, was a symbol, an arrow twisted like a snake biting its tail. I didn't draw that. I never would have. I tried following the original path, ignoring the new ones. But the forest shifted subtly landmarks out of place. Stones I'd passed before somehow moved. One stream that ran eastward on day 2 was flowing west the next. The air grew heavier, like walking through water, and the trees leaned in unnaturally close. I started taking photos to prove I wasn't losing it. But every photo blurred at the edges. And in one of them, the trees formed what looked like letters. I don't know how to say this without sounding mad, but the forest was writing back. Day 6, I gave in. I followed one of the new trails. It wasn't marked, not even trampled, just appeared. Clean cut like it had always been there. My compass spun twice before settling not north, not even toward magnetic poles, but toward me. I don't mean metaphorically. The needle pointed at me. No matter where I turned, I tried flipping it. Same result, like I was the fixed point, and the world was moving around me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the fire, holding the map. The new lines had grown, expanded. This time, they traced a circular route that looped impossibly back on itself. In the center was a name M. Coyle. My name, scrawled in a handwriting I recognized, but hadn't used since childhood. The ink looked wet. My fingers came away clean. But I felt something cold crawl up my wrist. I didn't look right away. I was too afraid. By morning, the forest was wrong. I don't know how else to say it. The sun rose in the west. A river ran uphill for 5 solid minutes before correcting itself. Trees had bark like skin. I found an old ranger tower that doesn't exist on any map, and inside it was a mirror, just a single, cracked mirror. In it, I was older, tired, and behind my reflection, something stood. A tall shape with fingers too long and a head that bent like broken bone. But when I turned around, nothing was there. I tried to leave, tried to retrace any logical step, but the trails kept curving in on themselves. I'd hike east and end up south. I used the sun for bearings, but it split 2 suns overhead, neither casting shadows. I screamed, once, not out of fear, but anger. The forest absorbed it like cotton. No echo, no bounce, just silence, until I heard it come back in a whisper, not mine. But close, still here, over and over. I burned the map, watched it curl into ash. The fire sputtered and hissed like something alive. And from the smoke rose outlines, new trails, written midair, vanishing before I could trace them. I should have run then. Should have taken it as a final warning. But I had to know what it wanted. Or maybe I already did. Maybe the map was never showing me trails to follow, but to find me. I haven't seen my own footprints in 2 days. The ground absorbs them too fast. The last thing I wrote in my journal was a date. But when I checked it this morning, the ink had bled into a single word, below. I don't know what's beneath me, but I hear it moving. Not like footsteps, like pages turning. Slowly, deliberately, and every now and then, I feel the earth press back when I walk, like it's trying to memorize my weight. Tomorrow I'll follow one last trail, one that appeared just now, drawn not on paper, but etched into the skin of my forearm. A line I didn't carve. But there it is, curling like a question mark. If I don't return, don't look for me. This place doesn't lose people. It rewrites them. I followed the trail carved into my arm. Not metaphorically. The line darkened as I walked, skin growing warm, then hot, then numb. It didn't bleed. It never did. But the further I went, the deeper the line seemed to pull, not across the forest floor, but beneath it. The path itself grew thin, like a thread of light etched through the shadow. Trees leaned away from it. The wind wouldn't touch it. The birds, if there were any left, fell silent altogether. It was as if the forest knew something was watching, or waiting. I stopped checking the compass. It hadn't moved in hours, still pointing squarely at my chest. I left my pack behind too. Once I realized I hadn't eaten in 3 days and still didn't feel hunger. My steps no longer left prints, and the leaves underfoot crunched out of habit, not reality. I should have turned back. Every instinct screamed it. But I kept going, because the forest had already decided I was part of whatever story it was writing, and I needed to know how it ended. At dusk, I found the stone, just a single, flat boulder in a clearing, smooth as glass and warm like flesh. On its surface were dozens of names carved so faintly they barely registered unless the light hit just right. Some were partial, some smudged, but mine was there. Dead center, M. Coil, no date, no epitaph. Just a name and a mark beside it, an open circle. The same shape burned into my skin. I touched the stone. The air changed instantly. The map came back that night. Not on paper, not even in dreams. I saw it in the stars, trails of red light connecting constellations that didn't belong. They moved when I blinked, shifting paths to new places that felt more true than the forest ever had. Each connection pulsed like a heartbeat, and when I closed my eyes, I saw a door. Massive, rooted into the ground like a tree. It didn't open, it unfolded. And something inside looked at me not with eyes, but with memory. I know now that I was never meant to chart these paths. I was always the path. The forest doesn't keep trails. It keeps people, their names, their steps, their choices. It collects them like pages torn from a book no one ever finishes. The lines on the map were never trails, they were veins, circuits, neural threads in something vast and ancient that lives beneath the mountain. It doesn't move. It remembers. And now it remembers me. The next morning, I woke to find a second line etched into my arm. It forked from the first, curving back toward the ranger tower I thought I'd only imagined. My legs moved without thinking. I arrived by noon. The tower was real, but the ladder had no rungs, just vertical wood, worn smooth like it had been climbed too many times by something that didn't need hands. Inside, I found a notebook. Not mine, not anyone's, I know. The first page had a date, M. Coyle, entry accepted. The second page was blank, and the third held my handwriting, only I hadn't written it yet. The words read, "He will walk backward into the place he was never born." My pen was in my pocket. My name was on the spine. And at the very end of the notebook, tucked into the back cover, was a map, not of the forest, but of me. My thoughts, sketched in trails and memory loops, places I'd never visited but remembered, symbols I couldn't read but recognized. I folded the map and put it in my chest pocket, just above my heart. That was 4 days ago. Time doesn't move normally anymore. The sun sets and rises wherever it wants. Sometimes I see versions of myself on other trails, distant and silent, walking in reverse. One waved. I didn't. I don't sleep now, not really. I just lie still while the ground breathes below me, and the map pulses warm through my shirt. I don't know how long I've been here, but the trail carved into my arm is nearly complete. Soon, I'll reach the final mark. I think it's where the story ends, or begins again. I've come to understand that maps don't just guide, they bind. They fix you in place. Draw lines through your choices until there's only one path left. And I am no longer a man walking a forest. I am a trail being walked by something else. So if you find this journal, if you read these words and think to trace my steps, don't fold the map, burn the page, and never, ever follow a trail that draws itself. The first time I saw the lake, I thought I'd made a mistake. No trail sign, no markers, just a mist-draped opening in the trees deep in the Great Smoky Mountains. I was a landscape photographer by trade, chasing morning light and elusive fog banks, the kind that settled low over still water. Locals in Townsend had mentioned an unnamed basin off a side path east of the Thunderhead Mountain. I assumed it was exaggeration backcountry drama. But when I stepped through the trees and saw that motionless black mirror stretching between cliffs, I stopped breathing. The lake didn't reflect, not the sky, not the trees, not me. Where there should have been my silhouette against golden mist, there was instead a different scene altogether, a burned cabin, roof half-caved, shadows moving slowly between skeletal pines, and children, 3 of them, maybe 4, laughing soundlessly in the water, their limbs distorted like bad footage. I turned, scanning behind me, but the trees were unbroken, just forest, just cold. Yet the reflection didn't change. I knelt down, dipped my hand in. No ripple. The water accepted me like glass, and I felt nothing, no cold, no texture. I pulled back and stared. The burned cabin was clearer now, as if I'd stepped closer in. The children had stopped playing. They were staring up at me, heads tilted, mouths open, but still silent. That's when I realized there were no birds, not even wind, just the sound of my own breathing, sharp and uneven. I returned to my car by dusk, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I reviewed the photos I'd taken 12 exposures, shot in RAW, all black, not underexposed, not corrupted, just black, as if the lens had seen nothing at all. Only one frame was different. A single faint image of the burned cabin, taken from a low angle, as if the camera had been lying in the lake. I didn't take that shot. I never set the camera down. I hiked back the next morning. The trail had changed subtly. Trees I remembered were gone, replaced by moss-covered stumps. The air smelled of ash, faint but constant. I followed the same line down into the basin. But the lake wasn't there, just the cabin fully intact now. Yet still wrong. Wood too new, windows too clean. Smoke curled from the chimney like someone had just stirred the coals. I approached slowly, hand on my camera. The door swung open before I knocked. Inside was warm. Lived in. A kettle hissed on the stove, though there was no sound of footsteps, no voices. I called out. Nothing. The table was set for 4, a loaf of bread untouched, still steaming. I backed out carefully, but before I turned, I saw a photo hanging crooked on the wall. My face, not recently me as a child. Standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. We were in front of the same cabin, smoke curling behind us. I didn't sleep that night. When I closed my eyes, I dreamed of water flooding the house, rushing through broken windows, dragging ash across the floor. I could still hear the children laughing, only now it was deeper, older. Like the sound had aged while I hadn't. In the dream, I opened the cabin door, and there was the lake, not outside, but inside, lapping at my feet. And the children were waiting, half submerged, faces familiar in a way that made my chest ache. I drove to a ranger station the next morning, asked if there'd been controlled burns or structural fires near Thunderhead in the past decade. The ranger frowned, said nothing burned there in years. And anyway, he added, there's no lake up that way. I showed him the photos, just black squares. I showed him the cabin shot. He went pale, asked me to wait, stepped into the back room. 15 minutes passed. When he returned, he said I should delete the pictures and take a different trail next time. That's all he said. And then he told me to leave. I've gone back twice since. The lake returns only when I don't try, when I lose my way or follow trails that shouldn't exist. The reflection shows more now, not just the cabin. I see myself there sometimes, older, thinner, standing at the window while others eat at the table. I haven't taken new photos. My hands shake too much. And each time I return to my motel room, something has changed an object out of place. A new photo in my phone I didn't take. One shows the cabin porch. I'm sitting in a chair, smiling, eyes hollow. I think the lake doesn't reflect because it's not water. It's a memory, or something that feeds on them. It shows what should have been, or what was meant to happen. Maybe what still will. I'm going back tonight, one last time. Not with a camera, not with gear, just with my own face, and a name I hope they still recognize. Because whatever that place is, it knows me, and I'm starting to remember it too. The trail was unfamiliar again. I left well before dawn, trusting instinct more than compass. The forest this time seemed half asleep still, breathless, like it was holding something back. I followed deer paths that ended too soon, stream beds that twisted into dry veins, until finally, I came upon the clearing. The lake had returned. There was no doubt this time. The mist sat low like a waiting breath. And where the water should have mirrored sky, It still held that impossible scene cabin. Smoke, children. But something was different now. The burned cabin in the reflection was no longer smoldering. It looked freshly ruined, like the fire had only just passed through. One of the children was gone. The others sat near the edge of the water, backs turned. I stepped closer, and the image trembled, as if reacting to me. That's when I saw myself again, not a shadow this time, but full-bodied, walking the tree line, zoning across the lake. He looked right at me, smiled. I called out, "Who are you?" But my voice didn't carry. The mist swallowed it whole. Still, the figure in the reflection nodded, as if he'd heard. He raised his hand and pointed to the cabin behind me. I turned. The cabin stood just as before. Not burned, not intact. Somewhere in between. A door slightly ajar, as if it had always been waiting. I walked toward it, slow, measured. The weight of inevitability pulling me forward like a tether. Inside, the warmth was gone. No bread, no fire. Just silence. The photo was still on the wall, my child self, unchanged. Though the woman beside me now had no face. Just smooth skin and long, dark hair. The table was bare, dust heavy. But on the floorboards lay something new, a single shoe, child-sized, half submerged in a thin layer of water that hadn't been there before. My throat tightened. I stepped back, and the boards groaned not beneath me, but beneath the house. Something was moving under the floor. I knelt and listened. Not water, not rats, breathing, slow, rhythmic, echoing from beneath. I pulled the trapdoor open without thinking, though I hadn't noticed it before. The crawl space was shallow, lined with damp stone, but deep in the back, something glowed a faint light, flickering like candle flame, and above it, written in black charcoal across the stone, "Come home." I should have run, but the air behind me chilled, and when I looked back, the doorway was gone. I crawled in. The light drew closer, but the tunnel narrowed. Water rose to my elbows. My knees scraped earth. And the breathing sound grew louder. But no matter how far I crawled, the light stayed the same distance ahead. I don't know how long I moved, minutes, hours. Time doesn't hold meaning underground. Eventually, the space widened. I emerged into a chamber, stone walls slick with moss, and in the center sat a pool, small, round, perfectly still. The reflection in the pool wasn't mine. It was the cabin, burning again. Then my face aged, hollow-eyed, mouth moving silently. Then Callie, though I don't know why her name came to me. Then my parents. Then no one. Just a black surface and the echo of laughter beneath it. I reached in, desperate now, aching with some grief I hadn't earned. And something took my hand. Gently, cold fingers, 5 of them, wrapping tight. I pulled back, nothing there. But my skin where it touched the water had turned pale, translucent, veined like leaves. I touched my face. It felt wrong. Too soft, too smooth. I looked for my camera and realized I hadn't brought it. I hadn't brought anything. Just myself. Or what was left of me. And behind me, the tunnel had closed. I don't know how I made it back to the surface, or how much time had passed. But when I opened my eyes again, I was standing by the lake, the real one. Or maybe not. The water was flat, still, but now it reflected me, only not the me that stood there. The reflection wore different clothes. Held a camera I no longer owned. And behind him, in the mirrored woods, the children stood, watching. I've tried to leave. Trails vanish as I walk them. Roads loop. My car rusted out overnight. I think I live here now. Not in the cabin, in the lake, in the space between reflections. People hike by sometimes. They never see me. But sometimes, if they look just right, their reflections pause, look my way, and if they linger too long, I think they start to see the cabin too. So if you find this, take nothing. Photograph nothing. Don't drink the water. Don't listen for laughter. And whatever you see in the lake, it isn't you. We found the door on our third day hiking through Monongahela. My wife, Lydia, spotted it first just standing there in a clearing, rusted steel and weather-bitten, with no frame, no hinges, no foundation. It leaned slightly backward, like something had tried to pull it through the ground and gave up. No latch, no markings, just a dull, iron slab, exactly 7 feet tall. We stared at it, unsure if it was art or warning. And before I could stop her, Lydia reached out and touched the handle. She didn't open it. She didn't even push. Her fingers barely grazed the metal before she vanished. No flash, no sound. One blink, and she was gone. The door didn't move. The air stayed still. I screamed her name, over and over. Ran around the clearing as if she'd somehow slipped behind me. But there was nothing, just the door and the grass beneath, perfectly undisturbed. I pressed my hands against the metal, felt its chill, felt my own breath catch. It didn't budge, didn't hum or pulse or give any sign of life. I set up camp beside it that night, certain it would open again. I stayed awake until dawn, eyes locked on the seam. But it never shifted. No animal came near. No wind passed through. The birds had vanished. The next morning, I marked the trees, made a wide loop hoping to find Lydia on some other path. Maybe just displaced. Took me 14 hours to circle back. The door hadn't moved. Neither had the shadows around it. I called for help on my satellite radio. Told them I'd lost someone. Gave coordinates. They promised a search team. I waited another night. By morning, a light rain had started. I could smell something strange now, like burnt hair and ozone. The door looked wet, but the rain never touched it. The droplets veered just slightly, as if avoiding the metal. When the team arrived 3 days later, the door was different. It had been sealed shut, not by rust or weather, but something deliberate. Woven tight around the edges was a thick braid of hair, long, black, and still damp, knotted into the metal like roots. The lead ranger went pale. He asked me to step away. None of them would touch it. One ranger pulled out a field camera and took a photo. The image, when it loaded, was blank. Not overexposed, just blank, white like snow. They asked me if I remembered the door being there when we started the trail. I didn't. I had the map. No door, no clearing, just trail. I tried to show them where Lydia vanished. But the grass was flat now, as if something had been pressed down and then slowly erased. No trace of her. No sign she'd ever stood there. Just the braid, looped tighter than any human hand could manage, humming faintly when the wind passed low. That night, I stayed behind. I had to. I couldn't leave her. The rangers hiked out at dusk, one of them handing me a small camp lantern and whispering, "Sometimes things open when they think you're not watching." I sat with my back to the fire, eyes locked on the door. I kept telling myself she was alive, that somewhere behind that metal. Lydia was breathing, walking, calling for me. The door just needed to open again. I dreamed of her voice, not from behind the door, but above it, like it was coming from the trees. She was singing, a lullaby I'd never heard, but knew the tune to. I woke with the soil in my mouth, fingers raw like I'd been clawing at something. The door was warm when I touched it. A pulse, slow and steady, barely under the surface, like a heartbeat muffled by years of iron. I whispered through the crack, told her I was still there, that I wouldn't leave. Something tapped back 3 times, then silence. When I pressed my ear to it, I heard breathing, not hers. Something deeper, slower, like it was sleeping. I asked who was there. No answer. But I could smell her perfume faintly now, jasmine and rain, and it made my knees go weak. I think the door doesn't lead somewhere. I think it is somewhere. A point folded too tightly into itself. A place no map can hold. I don't know if Lydia is alive or just remembered by it. But I've started dreaming her memories, moments only she knew. Her childhood bedroom, a scar I never saw. A song her mother hummed once. They come like flickers. And when I wake, I feel farther from myself. Tomorrow, I'll try again. Not to open the door, but to be taken. I'll press my palm flat and close my eyes. I'll whisper the song back to it. Maybe it'll listen. Maybe it'll let me. Because if she's still in there, I don't want to be out here anymore. The forest has grown quieter since I made that choice. No birds, no distant rustle of deer. Even the insects seem to have gone still, as if holding breath. I haven't left the clearing in 3 days. My food is gone, but I don't feel hunger. Not really. I sit beside the door and speak to it softly, as if to a sick friend. I tell it stories Lydia told me, hoping that it will remember her voice. I don't know if it hears me, but sometimes, late in the night, the braid of hair shivers faintly like it's dreaming. The soil around the door has started to sink. Slowly, each day, it settles a little deeper, as if the forest is trying to bury it or drag it down. I've seen things in my peripheral vision, quick glints of pale limbs between the trees, watching. They never come closer, never speak, but I feel them, like the door is never truly alone. I've started to wonder if the door isn't just sealed now, but guarded. Last night, I tied a piece of Lydia's jacket, what little I'd kept around the handle, just a ribbon of green nylon. When I woke, it was gone. In its place, a different cloth hung, soaked through and stiff with age. Same size, same shape. But it wasn't hers. I touched it. The smell hit me like a punch whetstone, rot, and the faintest trace of iron, like something that had been kept underwater for far too long. I tried not to cry, but the grief is different now. It doesn't crash, it sinks. I don't know what I expected when I finally pressed both hands to the metal and closed my eyes. A rush, a pull, a tearing. But it wasn't like that. It was quiet. Still, like falling through sleep. The air disappeared. My breath was gone. My body didn't move. But my mind drifted as if my thoughts stepped away and left the rest of me behind. For one moment, I was nowhere. Then, all at once, I was inside. Not a room, not even a space, just black. Fluid and endless. a stillness so deep it hurt. I couldn't see my body, couldn't feel my legs. But I could move just slightly, like swimming through molasses. In front of me, a shape flickered. Human, almost. But broken, like shattered light. I reached for it. It didn't reach back, but it turned, and where its face should have been. There was Lydia's mouth, open, silent, mouthing something over and over. I couldn't hear it, but I knew what she was saying. Leave! When I woke, the door was cold again. The braid of hair had withered to ash. A ring hers lay on the ground, where my head had rested. Bent, like something had pressed it too hard. I couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear. From knowing. She wasn't trapped. She was holding it closed, holding something inside. I left the woods that morning. Or I tried. The trail had changed. Nothing matched my compass. Every direction led me back to the clearing, no matter how far I walked. I returned to the door, and on the third day, I found something new, another door. Smaller, child-sized, carved in wood, set into the base of a tree. It had no handle, just a keyhole shaped like a teardrop. I understood then. The door wasn't singular. It was a system, a forest of entries, places between places, each with its own cost. I think Lydia was chosen to keep one sealed. I think I'm being offered the same. Each night I sleep beside it. I dream of people I've never met, speaking in voices I know, crying in languages I don't. They press against the door in dreams, pleading not to be remembered, as if memory is what gives them shape. I'm tired. My own reflection has started to mimic her hollow-eyed. Watchful, I think it's waiting for me to agree, to step through, not for rescue, but replacement. Because something ancient needs a new guard, something older than the mountains, sealed in silence. I still hear her voice in dreams, and every time she begs me not to follow. But the forest won't let me leave, and I'm afraid the door won't stay closed without someone on the other side. So if you ever find one, just a door, standing where it shouldn't be, don't touch it. Don't speak its name. Don't listen to the ones knocking. They aren't asking for help. They're asking for release. ChatGPT said the well wasn't on any map. I found it by accident, stumbling through the fog-choked highlands of Clay County, Kentucky, in search of a spring I'd marked weeks earlier. My name is Reed Salter. I hike alone, mostly, recording old trails and water sources for a conservation archive. I've seen collapsed cabins, forgotten moonshine stills, even a graveyard where the headstones were all blank. But I've never seen anything like the Laughing Well. It was small, maybe waist high, with a stone lip overgrown in moss and something dark blooming down the sides. I leaned over to look inside, expecting dry rock or stagnant rain. Instead, I saw nothing. Not blackness, nothing. Like the well had no bottom, no walls, just absence. And when I bent closer, I heard it a soft chuckle, unmistakably my own, echoing up from the dark. That's when I staggered back. That's when the second voice laughed too low, slow, amused in a way that made my skin crawl. I waited, trying to make sense of it. Maybe an animal had fallen in. Maybe my voice had echoed off the walls wrong. But when I called out, the echo came back a beat too late, with different inflection, like it had to remember how to sound like me. Then the other voice followed, almost over it, weaving beneath my tone like a second thread. It didn't mimic, It responded, and it was still laughing. I marked the spot, took photos, but none of them came out. Just white glare or warped shapes. The well was always off-center, like the camera couldn't decide where it really was. I dropped a small stone into the hole, waited for the sound. Nothing. No splash, no thud. Just the sudden, sharp sound of breathing rising up in its place, like whatever was down there had just noticed me. I didn't sleep that night. I made camp a mile off. But the sound carried soft laughter threading through the trees. Sometimes it was mine. Other times, not once. Just before sleep finally took me, I heard it close to the tent wall, right by my ear. Not loud, just a whisper. Why leave? You've already begun. I don't remember dreaming. I woke with a nosebleed and soil under my fingernails. I tried to hike out the next day, but the trail was wrong. Compass spun without pause. The ridges looked unfamiliar, like someone had carved them deeper overnight. I passed the same fallen birch 3 times each time. The bark had more carvings, not words, just faces, childlike, crude, all smiling. I didn't make camp again. I walked until dark and still ended up at the well. That night, I didn't just hear laughter. I heard my voice, talking, telling stories only I knew. And beneath it, a second voice correcting details, naming people I'd forgotten, dates I never said aloud. I realized it wasn't learning my voice. It was remembering it, not from echo, from memory, like something down there had been listening for a long time. I dropped my recorder into the well, just to see. The audio file was corrupt when I pulled it up later. But when I filtered the static, a voice emerged, mine again, over and over, whispering things I never said. Regret, apology. Then finally a phrase that chilled me to my bones. He's coming up now. As if the thing in the well wasn't content with laughing anymore. As if it wanted a voice of its own. I returned to the well once more, not because I wanted to, but because something compelled me, like a magnet to the mind. The moss had changed color, darkened like blood left too long in sun. I leaned in and whispered, "Who are you?" The silence after was unbearable. And then, from deep below, I am what you forgot. I am what remembers you. The wind rose after that, sudden and sharp. The trees groaned like they were shifting aside. The ground beneath my feet felt thinner, like a crust over something waiting. I turned to leave, and there, carved into the bark of the closest tree, was my name. Not once, dozens of times, each in a slightly different hand, some misspelled, some scratched backwards. I don't know how long I've been here now. My watch resets at 3:13 a.m. every morning. My voice is wrong in recording, slurred, slower. My own laughter feels foreign in my mouth. I caught myself humming something today, a tune I don't know, but can't stop. And when I tried to stop mid-note, the well finished it for me. Whatever's in there doesn't just echo. It replaces. It learns your sound until it's more you than you are. I can feel it now, its rhythm in my throat, its breath under mine. And sometimes, when I speak, the words come out wrong, not just mispronounced, wrong, as if someone else is choosing them before I do. If you ever find this well, don't look in, don't listen. It doesn't want to trap you. It wants to be you, and it's very good at learning how. It's in me now, Not fully, not yet, but enough that I can feel the division. When I speak, there's a lag, like my thoughts must pass through a filter first. Sometimes I forget what I was about to say, mid-sentence, and the words that come instead aren't mine. I've started avoiding mirrors, not out of fear, but because my reflection has become too still. It moves when I do, but something in its eyes is waiting, calculating. It doesn't blink. Not unless I force it. The well hasn't let me leave. I've tried 3 times. Different bearings, different hours, even at a dead sprint. But no matter how I navigate, I always return to it. Sometimes the path changes slightly, a new tree here, a downed log there, but the well is always centered. It's like the forest is a wheel, and that thing is the hub. Each time I return, the moss has grown darker, and now the laughter starts before I get within sight. It's familiar now, almost comforting. A lullaby made from my own inflection. I recorded myself reading old journal entries just to prove to myself I still had control. But when I played them back, the voice was wrong. Same words, different cadence. My sentences ended with lilted emphasis, like someone pretending to be me but not quite mastering the rhythm. I tried deleting the recordings. They came back. Different file names, same length. The last one ended with a laugh not mine. And just before it cut off, a whisper so soft I almost missed it. Say it again. I dream differently now. Deep, slow dreams that stretch time like taffy. I'm often walking through a house that shifts as I move floorboards pulsing, walls breathing. At the center is a well, not stone this time, but something organic flesh wrapped in moss, wide as a room. I hear laughter echoing up from it, but it's not amused. It's hungry. The worst part is that, in the dream, I'm laughing too. Oh, not because I find anything funny, but because I no longer know how to stop. Yesterday, I found a tooth on my pillow. Not a molar, not mine. Small, sharp, maybe from a child. Its root was slick, fresh, and the fabric beneath was stained like it had bled there overnight. I keep checking my mouth, but nothing's missing. Still, when I talk, I feel something loose near the back of my jaw, like an extra piece settling in, waiting to erupt. My laughter slips out more now, uninvited. In the middle of conversations with no one, I'm not alone anymore. The laughter comes from behind me, from just underfoot, and sometimes now from inside. I'll speak aloud and hear the sentence twice, once from my mouth, once from within, just a split second apart. Like an echo that doesn't fade, I've started mimicking myself back, trying to confuse it, talk over it, drown it out. But I can feel it laughing at me, and in those moments, I don't know which of us is in control. There's a phrase I keep saying in my sleep. I know because I woke up mouthing it into the dirt. Let me echo. Let me echo. I don't remember ever hearing those words before. But the well does. And now, when I approach it, I hear a crowd down there, not one voice, but many, all laughing, all speaking in tandem. And every now and then, a sentence floats up that I haven't spoken yet, like it's getting ahead of me. I'm not Reed anymore. Not exactly. That name is a coat I still wear. But it doesn't fit right. I forget details, birth year, favorite song, where I first learned to hike. The well remembers for me. It offers pieces back, sometimes in trade for a memory I didn't realize was missing. It's slow, but steady, like erosion, And one day, I'll open my mouth and someone else will answer. If you find the well, don't try to document it. Don't listen for your laugh. It isn't yours. It's a hook. The longer you stay, the deeper it pulls, until your own voice becomes unrecognizable. Until you wake up humming a song you've never heard. Until the words you say were never yours to begin with. This is the last entry I'll write, not because I've run out of things to say, but because soon I won't be saying them. Something else will. And if you hear a hiker laughing in the woods, don't follow. Don't answer. Just leave your voice behind. The first night was strange, but not impossible to explain. We were three of us, Tess, Mark, and me, camped off a fire road near the Shenandoah Valley. Tucked just past a bend where the trees thinned and the stars actually showed through. We pitched the tent on level ground, checked the slope, and even used those orange stakes Tess insists on double knotting. Sometime in the night, we woke to the feeling of motion not inside our bodies, but around them. A slow, dragging shift, like the earth itself was crawling beneath the fabric. When we unzipped the flap in the morning, the world was tilted. Our tent had moved, not rolled, not collapsed, moved, at least 20 meters uphill. The grass bore grooves, wide and parallel, like something had scraped beneath us all night. The stakes were still in the ground, every one of them, bent backward, like pulled taut in the wrong direction. At first, we laughed. Mark chalked it up to soil instability, gravity, but even he looked uneasy when we traced our path downhill and found the old fire pit we'd used the night before. Cold, untouched. Not a single step in the dirt between it and our new spot. We tried not to talk about it that second day. Hiked a loop, checked for cell signal, took a few pictures for the sake of memory. But none of us admitted what we were thinking, that tents don't drag uphill in silence, that stakes don't replant themselves. We drank more than we meant to that night, letting the fire burn a little longer than usual, talking loud to push back whatever edge had crept into the woods. The moon rose late. The forest around us swayed in windless rhythm. And I remember thinking the trees were watching not maliciously, but expectantly. The second morning, the tent wasn't ours. Same shape, same size, but different. Yes, the fabric was darker. A charcoal gray we didn't recognize. No zippers, no brand tag. The seams had vanished. And worst of all, there was no floor. Just earth. Cool and bare. Like the tent had grown from the ground overnight. Mark thought it was a prank. Tess didn't speak. I tried to find the bag we packed it in gone. Our gear had been rearranged. Our clothes laid out along the edges of the clearing like offerings. None of us remembered leaving the tent during the night, but the sleeping bags were pulled to the side, unzipped clean, and beneath them, the dirt had changed. It was packed flat in 3 perfect ovals. Our shapes, the impressions were too deep, too precise, like we'd sunk into the earth more than slept on it. I reached for my boots and found them already laced, as if someone or something had been helping us get ready. We left that morning, fast, cutting across trails we hadn't mapped. Compass wouldn't settle. GPS glitched, froze. After 3 hours of bushwhacking, we hit the same clearing again. Not just similar, identical. Fire pit cold, tent still there, still floorless. Tess started crying. Mark walked in a circle for 10 straight minutes, never leaving the edge. I stood by the tree line, watching the woods shift subtly. Trees too close, shadows too deep. The forest hadn't grown overnight. It had curled inward. That night, we didn't light a fire, we didn't speak. The tent accepted us without protest, its walls oddly warm to the touch. The dirt was softer than before, almost spongy, and when I tried to lie on my side, I felt something give like hollow space just inches beneath. I whispered to Tess, but she was already asleep, eyes open, lips slightly parted. Mark twitched beside her, breath uneven. And then I heard the scratching. Not loud, not clawing, just a soft, methodical rasp beneath the earth, like fingernails on stone. I didn't move, just listened. At some point, I must have slept, because I woke with my head on someone else's chest. Not Mark's, not Tess's. The skin beneath me was too smooth, too cold. And when I sat up, I was alone. Daylight had come. But the sun was in the wrong place. It hung low, heavy, casting long shadows from the wrong direction. Mark and Tess were gone. No footprints, no signs of panic. Just the tent, zipped now, its entrance smooth as skin. I didn't open it. I walked. I ran. I screamed. But the trees folded back to reveal the same path, over and over, eventually. The tent was behind me again, waiting. I haven't left the clearing since. I think this place chose us. Maybe we stepped off trail at the wrong second, between breaths, and slipped somewhere not meant for people. The tent is different now. It shifts slightly when I don't look at it. Sometimes I hear whispering from inside, not language, just breath, and the faint rustle of someone adjusting in sleep. If you find a tent in the woods, one without zippers, one without floor, don't step inside. Don't sleep there. Don't even touch it. Because when you wake up, it won't be your tent anymore, and it may not be you that wakes. I don't know how long it's been. The sky never changes here. The sun rises, but it doesn't warm, and it doesn't move. It just sits there, pinned above the trees like a mistake. My watch has stopped. I haven't eaten. Haven't needed to. I should be dead by now. But something about the clearing holds you, suspends you, stretches the hours out until time forgets what it's supposed to be. I stopped shouting days ago, or maybe weeks. My voice doesn't echo anymore. It just sinks into the trees like they're listening, absorbing every word for later. The tent hasn't left, but it has changed. It grows taller some nights, broader. I've seen seams crawl across its sides like veins, new angles where there weren't any before. And sometimes it breathes, not loud, just subtle enough to mistake for wind, except there's no wind here. The flaps pulse inward and outward, like it's exhaling. I tried to sleep outside it, but I always wake up inside, no matter where I lie down. Morning finds me on that bare earth, the tent closed behind me, the air thick with the scent of dry moss and skin. I don't dream anymore. I slip into a sort of silence, and in that silence, I see things, not images, places, long, dark corridors lined with fabric, distant hums like engines that have forgotten their purpose, a room full of cots, each holding someone I know but slightly wrong, their faces smooth, eyes open, breathing in sync, and behind all of them, a wall of canvas stitched too tightly to be accidental. Something waits behind it. I know that now. Tess came back 2 days ago, I think. She walked out of the trees without sound, barefoot, eyes too wide. She didn't speak, just crawled into the tent and curled up like she never left. I followed, sat across from her, knees to my chest. After a while, she started humming. The same tune over and over, low, slow, off-key, a lullaby we never learned. Her skin looked thin, not pale, transparent. When I tried to speak her name, she looked at me with someone else's sadness. Last night, I found a journal in my pack, not mine. The cover was cracked, wet. Inside were dozens of entries written in shaky, precise script, all signed with different names, names I didn't recognize, except one. Mark, day 17. The last page was dated the same day Tess returned. It read only this: "The tent knows your weight now. It sleeps in your shape." I tried to burn the tent this morning. Took a flare from the emergency kit, struck it against the spine of a stone. It lit. I threw it into the tent, and nothing happened. The flame vanished midair, just blinked out. No smoke, no scorch. When I looked again, the tent was already closed, like it had blinked too. There was something moving inside. But it wasn't Tess anymore. It moved wrong. I think this place is old. Not in years, but in purpose. Like the forest made a promise long ago to shelter something. And the tent is just the way it chooses to do it now. A trap that looks like safety. A structure that's always ready for one more. I've stopped counting the trees. They change anyway. They always let me return. They want me here. I've written this note a dozen times, buried it in roots, tucked it into branches. It always ends up back in my pocket. Maybe this one will stick. Maybe you'll find it. But if you're reading this, you're already too close. You've already seen the tent, already felt the ground shift beneath it. You may think you can pitch your own. Stay outside, keep separate. But that's the trick. It wants to become yours. It learns your weight, your breath, your sleep. So here's the only thing I can tell you. If the trees go quiet, turn back. If your tent feels like it's breathing, you've stayed too long. And if you wake up to find you're sleeping in something you don't remember building, don't open your eyes, because it's not a tent anymore. It's you. It was supposed to be routine. Our team of 5 had been combing the Black Mountain woods outside Asheville for historical remnants, collapsed homesteads, pottery shards, fire rings. We'd been tipped off by an old surveyor's sketch showing a structure not listed in any current database, about half a mile past the last marked path, when we found it just sitting there, perfectly intact. No trails, no surrounding ruins. We all stopped. A small log house, single room, low roof line, smoke still trailing from the chimney like someone had just stepped out. But no one had. And the strangest thing, the doorknob was warm, inside. The place felt lived in. Fire in the stove, 2 plates on the table, 1 half-eaten, a coat hung on the wall. Boots beside the hearth still held shape like they'd just been removed. But there were no signs of recent entry. No footprints in the soft earth, no tire tracks. No path at all. The dust was undisturbed except for the table, the stove, and a single rocking chair in the corner, gently swaying when we entered, though the air was still. We checked for wildlife. Nothing. Not even spiders in the corners. The strangest thing was the clock. Wooden, old, with brass trim. The minute hand frozen at 3:17. It didn't tick. It didn't wind. And no matter how many times we tapped the glass or checked the weight-driven mechanism inside, it wouldn't move, eventually. We agreed to log it, mark coordinates, and return with proper documentation gear. The light was already starting to dim. As we backed out, Dana, our lead, paused and said, "Feels like it's waiting for someone." We all laughed, sort of. I was the one who went back, not because I was told to, because I couldn't stop thinking about it. The food, still warm. The woodpile perfectly stacked. No wildlife, no rot. Something in the cabin had stuck to me, like ash. I told the team I was going to collect wood samples and take clearer photos before the rain hit. They let me go alone. I reached the site just after noon. The air was still thick and humming, the way it gets before a storm. But the cabin wasn't quite the same. The angle was off subtle, but enough to make me double take. The roof slanted just slightly more. The windows were darker. When I opened the door, the fire was out, the food untouched, but cold now. I stepped inside and felt my ears pop, like descending too fast in a plane. I should have left. I didn't. I set my bag down, reached for a sample knife, and then darkness. No thunder, no wind, just sudden, swallowing black, like someone had blown out the sun. My flashlight flickered, then steadied. I was still in the cabin, but everything felt wrong. The walls looked longer, the window higher, and the clock still at 3:17 was ticking now, sounding a little loud, wet ticks like the beat of something organic. I reached for the door. It was gone, just wood. No seam, no knob, only grain. I don't know how long I was inside. Maybe hours, maybe more. The light never changed, but I heard things. Breathing, scratching behind the walls. The chair rocked without stopping. Once. I looked up and saw someone standing just outside the window, face pressed to the glass. But their eyes were all wrong. Too wide. Too calm. They didn't blink. Then, without ceremony, the door returned. Just appeared. I ran. Didn't gather my tools. Didn't check for my pack. The forest was darker than it should have been. I made it to the trailhead and collapsed by a marker post. When the team found me 2 hours later, I couldn't speak. My watch read 3:17. Still does, no matter how many times I change it. They told me I'd been gone 2 nights. 46 hours. But to me, it felt like nothing. Like the space between 2 blinks. The tests came back normal. No exposure, no dehydration. But I can't explain what followed. Because 2 weeks ago, I looked in a mirror and saw myself just slightly younger. Like the edges of my face hadn't aged with the rest of me. My fingerprints don't match the ones on my old ID. The lines are there, but reversed. And then Dana called. She'd been reviewing old case files, pulling historical land surveys to match the area. She found a report from 1909 about a family disappearing near that stretch of woods. Their house small, log cabin. Single room was found fully intact with food still on the table. They'd vanished without a trace. The only thing noted in the report, the clock read 3:17. I've stopped sleeping. Not because I'm afraid, because I can't. I lie down, close my eyes, and an image returns every time the clock, ticking backward. A door I never opened. A chair that rocks just before something enters the room. And always the sound of wind in the chimney, though the air is still. I think the cabin didn't let me leave. I think it sent me back, just slightly off. A version near enough to pass, but not enough to stay. So if you find a house in the woods warm, lived in. Fire burning, don't go inside, especially if the clock has stopped, especially if it reads 3:17, because some places don't move forward. They wait, and when the right person steps through, they remember. I haven't been back to the cabin, not physically, but pieces of it keep showing up quiet, deliberate. I woke one morning to find the smell of smoke in my apartment, faint but unmistakable. My kitchen window was cracked open just slightly, though I hadn't touched it. On the floor beneath it, pine needles, damp and dark, still clinging to earth that isn't from around here. That same day, a clock app on my phone reset itself, looping back to 3:17 every time I opened it. I deleted it. It reinstalled on its own. The dreams come nightly now. Always the same structure. I walk into the cabin, see the clock, feel the weight of the air shift. But the rest changes. Sometimes the food on the table is molded into unrecognizable shapes. Sometimes the chair is facing the door, waiting. And sometimes I walk in and see myself already there, sitting by the fire, unmoving, watching the flames without blinking. That version of me never turns around. It just waits until I wake up with a start and feel ash on my tongue. I went to a sleep clinic last week, desperate to find answers. They hooked me up, ran tests. I slept less than an hour. When I woke, the technician looked pale, shaken. We picked up a second brainwave. She said, just for a few seconds, running parallel to yours. She showed me the chart. It looked like someone else's dream had pressed up against mine, mirroring it too closely. I left before the doctor could ask more questions. Objects shift now. Books I don't remember buying appear on my shelves. Titles like Still Wood and Return Before Ash. Pages blank, except for one, an old illustration of a cabin, nearly identical to the one we found, with the clock clearly drawn above the doorframe. Every time I try to throw one out, it's back the next day. Same spot, same angle, waiting. I've stopped trying to explain it. The cabin followed me back. Or maybe I'm just part of it now. I finally called my team. Dana didn't answer. Neither did anyone else. Their numbers rang, then clicked into static. No voicemails, no social media, no records. I checked the university directory. They were gone. Not just off the site, removed, like they were never listed. I drove to Dana's house, but the windows were dark, the mailbox overflowing. Her front lawn looked untouched, as if no one had passed through in months. When I peered through the glass, I saw a coat hanging on the wall. Same one she wore the day we found the cabin. Still dry, still clean. The last thing I remember clearly was opening my laptop to document everything: dates, names, symptoms. But the keys began to stick. Not physically, but rhythmically. Every time I typed 317, the screen flickered. Every time I typed cabin, the file closed itself. Eventually, it just wouldn't open at all. I looked up and saw the rocking chair in my apartment. I don't remember bringing it in. I don't remember it being there, but it rocked, slowly, in the same rhythm the clock used to tick. And beside it on the floor, a clump of chimney soot in the exact shape of a handprint. I think the cabin moves, not by distance, but through people, through time, through memory. It anchors itself in those who find it, those who stay too long or return alone. It uses our thoughts to reshape itself, perfect the illusion, until the world no longer knows what version of you walked back out. If any, I feel different in mirrors now. Not wrong, just almost. A breath behind, a pause too long. And sometimes, when I speak, I swear I hear another voice finishing the sentence inside my own head. The truth is, I don't think I ever left. Maybe no one does. Maybe the moment I stepped through that doorway, the real version of me ended. The rest of this has just been a loop, a retelling. A copy running on borrowed time. I still have the ring we found on the cabin floor, still warm to the touch, still ticking faintly when I hold it to my ear. Not fast, just enough to remind me that the clock hasn't stopped, that it's still keeping track of everything I try to forget. So if you find yourself lost in the woods, and the trees fall away to reveal a cabin that shouldn't be there, walk away. Don't look inside. Don't check the stove or the chair or the clock. Because if it reads 3:17, it's already too late. That's not just a time. It's a place. And if you enter it, it will remember you, even if the rest of the world forgets.